you know. All
Yeah.
right. It came up, so you should be able to find it on Twitter now.
All right. Perfect. Let me try to navigate the Twitter world. It's so funny that I'm becoming like semi bigger on Twitter because I hate Twitter. I hate Twitter
Oh,
with like a passion.
yeah.
Let me see. One, two. Let me see. I just gotta make sure I type it right.
Yeah, yeah. You're good. All right. Well, you find it and retweet it. I'm gonna just do like a little
Yeah,
intro here since we're live.
this is your
All
show.
right.
Yeah,
What's
this is
up, everybody? We're back for another stream walking through the NBA slate today. Got a little bit bigger slate. Yesterday was a rough day for me. A good day the day before that, but those days go up and down a little bit. I think there's some better spots today. And on top of that, we have a guest today who has been absolutely crushing props. I started following Brian versus the books probably only like 3 weeks or a month ago. And
yeah.
every single day, it's amazing prop stuff. So he's joining me today to walk through some of these games. He might have to go before we're all the way through the slate, but give you some good insight on the props. So thanks for joining me today, man. Appreciate you doing it.
Thanks for having me. I mean, I was kind of just doing a lot of nothing, so this is kind of a good way to like.
Something to fill the time. I mean, NBA is
Yeah.
a good way to do
So
that, right?
you
So,
currently have COVID, right? Is that what you said or no?
yeah, I currently have COVID, and you
Yeah.
too.
Yep. Same. So that's why I look like this, guys. Don't worry about it.
This is the COVID cast,
Yeah.
apparently.
This is
So, but we can still sit in front of a computer and look at NBA games, so
yeah.
it's
It's
all
like
good.
you messaged me and you were like, you want to hop on? And I was like, dude, I been in bed. I was like, I throw a hat on. I'll just hop on. Yeah.
Hey, that's what I do. Is I throw a hat on too, so we're good to
Yeah.
go.
That's what I do. Like, I'm
So,
not a big hat guy. But today it is. Today it's fine.
hey, we do what we got to do. So, hey guys, as you are watching, absolutely appreciate any retweets, comments, any of that kind of stuff that you've got. Would appreciate it. So we're gonna jump in and we're gonna go to the Bucks and the Nets first here. And Brian, I'm gonna throw it to you to start us off. Talk about what you see in this game and what props you're looking at.
Yeah. So the one prop that like I shouldn't even get like credit for mentioning it, but I was looking at Giannis's over in points, which I think like a 2-year-old would like, could even figure out that like Giannis scores a lot. But it's one of those ones where there's no Drew Holiday today, which if you look at the splits without Holiday, they're not necessarily like better or worse for Giannis in all honesty, but you just take away a scorer there. And Giannis just really hates the Nets. Like overall, I think he's in the last like 14 games against the Nets, he's averaging about like 34 points a game, I believe. It does get a little skewed because, like I think we talked about before we went live. This is like they were in the playoffs, so obviously you get like inflated numbers in the playoffs. But him and James Harden don't really get along, and it's just one of those teams where he seems to kind of just like get really fired up to play against. The only issue with that line is that it did open 29 and a half, and in my in bed all day, like feeling like nothing. I kind of missed out on the opening line. So that's the only thing is because like 29 and a half and 30 and a half is one of those lines where it's just like it's a very fine like 30 plus where like
Yeah.
that 30 and a half kind of makes me a little bit hesitant. So if I were to play that, it's actually funny. I found I'm never like that like person that like pairs two picks or anything like that, but like I found that if you go to DraftKings and you do like a same game parlay of Giannis 30 plus points and Giannis 35 plus points rebounds, it makes it like minus 125. So it's one of those things where it's like as long as he gets 5 rebounds, it's kind of like you're getting a minus 125 for that 30 plus. But if
Okay.
I end up playing it, it probably something like that because I'm one of the people that I'll rather take some juice and get in that extra point for like that even 30. But that was the one I was looking at like initially.
Okay. That's awesome. Any other things you're looking at on that game, or is that the main one?
That's the main one, and other than that, like I was looking at I had to check what the line is, but like before we went live, I was looking at Kevin Durant's under in threes. Not when I'm really sure I'm gonna play or not, but I think on DraftKings it was minus 135 for under 2.5. Overall in the season, he's taken about 5 threes a game. So like that right there, you got to make 3 of them at 60%. It's pretty high clip there. But he's taken like 16. I think it's 15.9. I'm going to round up to 16 shots inside the arc a day, per game, I should say. The only worry there is that there's no Drew Holiday. So with that,
Yeah.
I do worry a little bit about like the defensive like front of the Bucks, but in my opinion, like he's just not taking as many. So it is kind of like if it was a minus 110 each line, I would definitely take it. But without that Drew Holiday, it adds a little bit of a like curveball. But he's only hit 3 threes in three of his last 18. So that's what I think I said 20.
Man.
Yeah, 18 games. He's under that in 15 of them. People hate when I take those kind of unders though, because I feel like I have like thousands of people watching the game, screaming at the TV as someone sitting at like 2 threes every time they're hanging around. I think my favorite bet of the NBA year is I took LaMarcus Aldridge under 0.5 threes, and that was like a few weeks ago. And I think I was at like 5,000 followers, and I tweeted something about it where I was just like, that makes me so happy that there was probably like so many people, like hundreds of people watching a game. And every time he like kind of drifted out, they're just like, no, get out. Like I don't know. I had like a moment where I was like,
don't shoot it.
He took 1 3, and my boss like texted me. He was like, that almost went in, and I was like, it clanked back iron.
You're like, yeah, well, that can happen.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't say he wouldn't take any. I said he wouldn't make any.
That's right.
No, yeah.
And,
so
and you're allowed to be wrong once in a while too.
Yeah.
But
no, yeah. So those are the two I was looking at in that game more than anything.
okay. Awesome, man. I kind of like that. I mean, we talked about this before, but I think it's interesting anytime they have plus money on a prop like that for a star like KD on those threes. It almost feels like they want you to take that.
Yeah.
And so like they don't want you to go that other way too, is what it feels like. So
yeah, and they kind of juice it a little bit, which makes you kind of think about it. But that was one that I see some like good trends towards.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I just have a few things on this game, and I actually did make a bet on this game already, so I'll share that too.
I haven't bet anything yet. I just keep staring at my phone and not taking anything.
Yeah, totally. Well, it'll come eventually, right? So, so for me on this game, when I look at it, one of the things that I think has been true watching Milwaukee is they are obviously a really good team, but I feel like they almost need all of the pieces from their team in order to hit the levels that they should be able to hit. And now they've got DiVincenzo out again, Connaughton, Allen, I think are both out, and then Holiday as well. So they've actually got a lot of people out tonight. And Milwaukee without Drew, it's a small sample size, but this season, their offensive rating with him is 115.6, and without him, it's 102.6, which is a dramatic drop.
Yeah.
And then their defensive rating goes from 108.8 to 111. So they're a little bit worse on defense, but a lot worse on offense in a small sample size without Drew. Also, we were talking about this before. Kyrie did come back now and had a pretty decent offensive game, I guess, for his first game back in a long time. But you were talking about how bad Brooklyn was last year on defense, and how with him back, that's the case now too. And so I think this is a spot with no Kyrie back in Brooklyn where the defense is going to be better, and Milwaukee could struggle a little bit. Also, in terms of looking at trends, the under is 8-1-1 in the last 10 between these two teams specifically. And the number tonight is pretty high. It was a 232, 232 and a half some places. And so I did get in on the under 232 and a half on this game, just based on all those things.
Yeah, I was going to say it is 233 even on FanDuel now. So
nice.
You can get that push if you really wanted it.
Yeah, even higher.
And we kind of were talking about like unders beforehand, but that's one where I think there is some value in inflated unders in props and in game totals as well, because no one likes taking an under. So like I feel like you can find some value in like, because I think let me see, what did it open as? I think it's going upwards. It opened at 230 and a half.
Okay.
It opened 230 and a half, and it just keeps going up because everyone likes to see offense. So it's one of those things.
Got a little bit of a freeze.
Oh,
there we go. I think you're back now.
No, I was going to say, I think you can find some value in unders because the public line really moves a lot of the overs. So it's I have like a general theory where if I like an over, I'll put it out earlier, but if I like an under, I'll kind of like see how it feels. And this is a perfect example where you can get 3 points higher right now than an open bet.
Totally. Awesome. Well, hey, let's go on. The next one we talked about going through was the Cavs and the Blazers. So why don't you talk about what you see there and any props you're looking at for that game?
So perfectly enough, that's the one game I actually have a bet in right now. I have one prop. I took it at like 3 a.m. because I don't know why I was looking at props at 3 a.m. Just normal day. I didn't put it out until like 7 a.m. I woke up in the middle of the night. I guess for me it was middle of the night. I just been feeling tired, but like that was one where I took it and I was like, I'm not tweeting a line out at 17 in the morning. But I did take Darius Garland over 19.5 points. I think the line has moved to 20.5, but it's at plus money now. So like I don't know if you want to cross over that 20 plus mark, but he's been taking 17 shots at least in the last 3 games. Like last 3 games, I think he's taken 17, 22, 26 shots. So I was kind of debating between his points and assists or just points, but his field goal volume has been like unworldly. Like he came back from injury last game, and I watched the film like at 2 a.m. of course because that's what I do. And I was watching him. He like was shooting kind of awfully. Like he shot 9 for 26, but when you take 26 shots, you're gonna find some points along the way. So that was one where he's been taking so many shots, and Portland's so bad, like defensively in terms of like their overall rating, and they're missing, McCollum, who's a good defensive player, missing some of their like length, but he's just one of those guys where I think Robert Covington and like Nurkic down low they're not going to necessarily stop Allen or Mobley, but I think it opens up a lot of like outside space for someone like Garland that's just firing. He's taken 8 threes a game the last 3 matchups as well.
That's a lot.
Like it's one of those things where if he shoots 4 for 28 or something like that, then I guess I'll lose. But if you're giving me 20 plus shots, I like the idea of him going for 20. He's also it's another one where we kind of mentioned before we hopped on live. We talked about, finding the value and not in like certain splits. And this is a split where he's averaging 19 and a half points a game. So like this line is right in his season average. But since Colin Sexton got hurt, he's averaging over like almost 22 points a game. So it's one of those things where it's like, like it's in line with the season average, but it's not. Like his season situation is not the same. So without Colin Sexton, this is 2 points over his average against like one of the worst. Actually, one of the worst. The Trailblazers allow the most points in the league, so they're allowing 113 points a game. Last 3 games without like with the injuries, they've allowed I think 124 points a game. I think I said like they've allowed. I think the Lakers 139. Like there's just a lot of points. So that's one I was really looking at. Like I think you can kind of look at the Cavs starting 5 and just like roll a dice and pick somebody for an over. But he was the one that like stood out to me.
Yeah, man, that totally makes sense. Well, I'll share a few things I found in terms of looking at this game for sides and totals. So, I mean, I definitely love the Cavs and was betting them for a while, but this stuff with Rubio going out and all the COVID stuff they had, I think did throw off their rhythm some for sure. I think it's actually a positive that Rondo's coming in because I think he can fill in for that Rubio spot a little bit where Rubio's out. But the big thing, like this was a spot that I was actually last night thinking about hammering. Cleveland, I think was I forget if it was -4 or -5 when I was looking last night. But as I dove into the research some more, there's one thing I found that probably is going to at least keep me off of hammering this spot. And that's that recently Cleveland's actually been playing really bad on defense. And I know that they've had some guys out, but I was just looking at the last 5 games, not even further back than that. And they've allowed over 33% from 3-point range in 4 out of 5 games and over 41% in 3 out of 5. And Portland's been really bad with McCollum and Lillard out, but when they do score, a lot of the scoring they've done has been from 3-point range. And especially Anthony Simons has been scoring from 3-point range.
That guy's been on fire.
Yeah, he shot 50% and 56.3% in the last 2 games from 3. McLemore shot 50% in one of those games. Powell shot 42.9 and 40%. So, like, if Portland's going to score, I think the way they're going to do it is around the 3-point line for the most part, not by driving inside anyway, where those big guys are, and it would be
I
tougher
mean,
for them.
the Cavs are the only team in the modern NBA that just have 3 7-footers, and they just decide to start them all. It's crazy, but it's working.
Yeah, it is crazy, totally. So yeah, so I think like it just makes me a little bit nervous, like to see that Cleveland hasn't been playing well defensively, and I think they'll get back to it eventually. But the question is always, will they tonight? The other thing I'll throw in is I don't know if you watched it, but just watching their last game versus Miami, I had a lot of bets on that game, and so I watched a lot of it. And
Uh,
honestly, like Miami gifted them the low. So Miami only got 115 points, which looks pretty good, but they played so terrible in the first half. And
yeah,
then Portland on offense looked so discombobulated. Like they would just stand around for most of the possession, and then somebody would try to set one screen and like throw up a crazy shot. So I one of the spots that I do like okay here too, and it goes maybe with Garland if he has a good night, is the Cleveland team total over, because I think it's possible that if Portland shoots really well from three again, that they could score high. But I think Cleveland maybe would too. So if I was going to look at this game, I'm actually feeling like Cleveland's team total is something I like more than the spread on the game at
yeah.
this point.
I think you mentioned Rubio. I have to like check because like obviously I'm on my laptop right now. I don't want to leave the stream, but I believe their pace with Rubio does change a lot because Rubio is really good at like he runs the floor well, but he's really good at like settling the offense.
He is.
I love Darius Garland, but he moves like he moves the floor. Like the way this guy like he kind of like reminds me of like Tyrese Maxey in Philly. Like he just kind of like runs out of a cannon sometimes where you don't know what's gonna happen. So like if you're talking about like team total, there might be extra possessions given. Like it's one of those things where I think the Cavs pace of play is a little skewed with like how it ran when they had Sexton and Rubio. So I could see that happening for sure.
Totally.
You mentioned Simons, like he's another guy. Like I think his points assist is like 24.5
Man.
on like DraftKings. It's like I think it has juice. I think it's like minus 125, but that's a guy where it just I think he dropped 40 the first night, and then like he just like has like I think he had like 20 some like on points alone. So it's one of those things where it's like he's hit it twice on points alone, I believe. And I saw that, and that's one of those ones where I tweeted something out where I was like, this slate scares me because you see so many props and so many games, and it's like that makes a lot of sense. And then you're like, why? Why does it make that much sense? Like, it kind of makes you double take.
Right. Because the books don't want to lose, right? So it's not like they don't have any idea what's going on. So
yeah, so it's a weird one.
Yeah. Hey, just to check in here, man. I know that you had a call coming up in a little bit.
I moved it. I talked to Pete.
Oh, you're good. Okay.
We're doing it at
Cool.
5 now.
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet. All right. Well, let's go on to Minnesota and Oklahoma City then. What are you looking at there?
It's another one where it's weird. Like the one I was looking at was the one that stood out was Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is one of those guys where I've heard people have like horror stories about betting him. I'm gonna pull up my numbers on my phone. But I've had really good success with him. Let me see. Sorry about that. I'm just gonna pull up the numbers I had because I have it on Excel sheets, so we're good.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm trying to be like in the 21st century. It's crazy. Yeah, Anthony Edwards. That's one where I think his points line was 21.5. It was I think 105 minus 105 on DraftKings. That was one where when I was like breaking down the props and like going through all my numbers, I kind of like had a double take because the last 6 games he's averaging 26 points a game, and some people could say like, oh well, Cat's back, like gonna change the scoring, but he actually scores the same. Like I think it's like a 0.3 difference between like without Cat or with Cat. So the last 6 games he's dropping 26 a game. He's playing the Thunder and the Thunder of the Thunder. Like they're just they play decent defense. Like recently, like they've been terrible all year. They've actually tightened up the last 2 weeks, but they still allow these like massive lines. And for someone like Edwards, that's like shooting the amount he's shooting and the way he's just like taking over games. He's gone over this 5 of his last 6 games. That's one where I looked at it and I just didn't really get it, I guess you could say. Like it's kind of stood out to me was that one.
Okay. Awesome, man. So for me looking at this game, I actually in this one ended up looking back at the game they just played, since these two teams just played on Wednesday.
Yeah,
And Minnesota's offensive rating in that game was 100, which is their fourth lowest of the season, and their
yeah,
second lowest since the first week of the season.
that's funny.
Oklahoma City's Oklahoma City's offensive rating was 91.8, which is terrible, and they're always terrible on offense. But that was their lowest since December 12th, so it was a really bad game for them. And Minnesota's defensive rating, obviously, these are the same either way. So at 91.8 on their defensive rating, that's their lowest since December 17th and their third lowest of the whole season. So while Oklahoma City's definitely not a team you expect to score a lot of points, this game in particular was really like
Yeah,
almost season low for both
it was
Minnesota
like
and
90,
Oklahoma City.
98, 90, right? Yeah,
Yeah, it was 98-90 was the score. Yep. So I don't expect it to be that low again. Though Oklahoma City doesn't often like blow the doors off or anything. When you look at trends on this game, Minnesota is 5-1-1 against the spread in their last 7 at Oklahoma City, and they are back to full strength more now and had one game to kind of ramp back up. So I do actually like them here. -5.5 is maybe more than I want to pay, and so it's probably something that I'll watch live. But also the over is 7-1 in the last 8 at Oklahoma City between these two teams. However, I think 219, which is where it was when I looked, is definitely too high for me to want to jump in as well. So this is a game where I'm definitely going to be watching the spread and the total live, because I think if it can get down closer to a pick 'em, I really like Minnesota. And if it can get down closer to 210, I like the over on this game.
I'm checking now. It's 217. So people
Oh,
definitely,
it's come down. Okay.
yeah, people
Yeah.
definitely don't expect these teams to score.
Yep.
Which is funny. 'Cause
Understandable, but
you brought up the like the season low, like offensive rating. Watching that game was really rough. As a guy that likes to bet unders, I was even having trouble like watching that game. They were bricking it, and that's kind of where I see some like I see some value in a lot of the props in that game, because in my experience, games that have those clunker like awful back and forth, and then they play the same matchup in the next game, like you don't expect the same thing to kind of happen. So like, that's one where Anthony Edwards dropped 22 in a game that his team didn't clear 100 points. So like against the same team, I like the idea that if they're moving a lot better and they get more like pace and they actually hit some shots, like 21.5 just seems like it's set because he scored 22 last game against them, but that was like an outlier game where the whole team just looked like the Timberwolves, like they just like
yeah, totally. No, that makes a ton of sense actually on that prop for him to be able to hit what he hit last game. Because I agree with you. A lot of times when these games are back to back, they end up looking different the second time around than they do the first time.
I actually target games that like this because I feel like a lot of times the second hand, like the second leg of it, they look different, but the books kind of set it because people love like to get into trends and they get into like whatever. So I like the idea that like the lines are usually set based on that previous game, but if you kind of look into it a little bit more, you can kind of like figure out what lines are undersold or oversold based on that like last performance.
Totally. Yeah, man. All right, awesome. Well, that's hopefully some good stuff for people on that one. Let's go on to the Spurs and the 76ers. Do you have anything you want to start off with there, or I can jump in and you can look at what you've got? Or
you're talking to I don't know if you can see it, but like you're talking to the Eagles. Like I'm right outside Philly, so like for me,
okay? All right.
Like this is a close to home one I don't want to talk about. No,
Awesome.
you start with it and then I'll run with it.
Okay, so like the biggest thing that I ended up looking at in this game, like obviously looked at a lot of different research, but it came down to when Philly has 28 or more attempts and shoots 30% or better from 3, they're 7-1 in December and January and score 115.38 points a game. And those are fairly low bars, honestly. Like shooting over 30% from 3 is not that hard. 28 or more attempts is not that hard. They've actually had both of those in
Danny Green shoot the ball, but
yeah, right. Well, and Curry. So but they've actually hit that in 5 straight games. And when the Spurs allow 28 or more attempts and 30% or better from 3, they give up 114 points a game. I think that's a very likely outcome in this game. And so one of the things I'm looking at is Philly scoring around that 114 to 116 range overall as a team, which is over their team total of 112 and a half, at least last time I looked. The other thing is thinking about San Antonio's 3-point shooting in terms of the total for this game as a whole. So they do have McDermott out, who's one of their best shooters. But Forbes will be in there, and he's not a great defender, but he definitely shoots the three well, 40.3% on the year. Also, Kevin Johnson, is it Kevin Johnson or Kelvin Johnson? Is good.
It's
What is
Kelvin.
it? Kelvin,
Yeah.
there we go. Kevin Johnson is the old son. Yeah.
Whenever you thought it was, you're wrong. It's Kelvin.
Yeah. All right. It's not the old son who played like 20 years ago. But he shoots 44.1% from 3-point range as well. And so I think they could be okay on offense, but I think that they could struggle on defense some, which just adds more fuel to that 76ers team total over. I do lean toward the over here for the game as well, which was at 218 and a half. That's 5-1 in the last 6 in Philadelphia between these two teams. So there's some precedent there for that. But I like the Philly side even more than the game as a whole. So that's kind of where I'm at on this game.
Yeah, the one thing for me is that's another one I'm battling where like it makes so much sense, but Joel Embiid's point total is 29 and a half. And if he hits the over, it's the last time you're gonna get it below 30. Like it's one of those things where like he started like some guys, like, you know, new ball, new rules, whatever, like they start off slow, but he's at this point where he's hitting 30 points a game in like 7 of his last 8, I think.
Yeah.
He's just on this tear where like I tweet about him a lot now because I watch a lot of basketball, but he's one of those guys where it's funny because he gets a lot of hate. Like you watch this guy play basketball, it's beyond ridiculous to me. Like how the 7'2" center is like fading away at the elbow, just like he's just putting guys in a blender. And when I saw 29 and a half, it was kind of one of those things where I was like, okay, it's 1 point higher than last game. He dropped 31. But like the Spurs allow the most points in the paint in the entire league.
Wow.
Like, we're talking 54
Wow.
game in the paint. So like as crazy as it is, the thing a guy scores 30 for I think it's 6 straight games, he has 30 points. Or it's 5 straight. This would be the 6th game. He scored 30 points in 5 straight. So it seems like that's almost impossible to keep up with. But when you look at the matchup and they're giving up 56 points a game in the paint in the last 3 games, and they don't have any, no one has anyone to guard them, but like the Spurs don't have anyone to guard them and like double that, I guess. Like, I mean, you had the Magic with Wendell Carter and like Mo Bamba, not necessarily great defenders, but like you talk about the length that the Magic have, and he just kind of cut through them. Like the Spurs, it's just one of those things where 30 plus does not seem like a tough ask. Like you're getting the team that allows the most in the paint, and they're the 4th highest pace. So you're talking about possessions and opportunity. I I'll probably end up taking it, but definitely take a double take because it's such a high over under. But I don't see them stopping him. Like if that makes sense. Like he's just
Totally.
Yeah, like I don't know, like the way that they allow points in the paint and the way that because the Spurs, like especially like Duto Murray's back. So with Murray back, their pace is way higher with him too. So you're just talking about a team with so much pace. But if you give a guy like him more possessions, he's gonna drop a lot of points.
Yeah. Total man, that makes a ton of sense to me, even though that is a high total.
Yeah, like I said, I hate high totals, but like and I also like I hate taking things because like I don't bet as a fan. I bet completely like analytically and like I mean I'll bet against my team. I faded people.
Totally.
I've in beats unders to start the year, but like you just get like I think Shake Milton's still out. Danny Green's a maybe. Isaiah Joe's a maybe. I think they get Maxey back, but Paul Reed's out. Like he's playing a lot of minutes and he's taking so much shots that like it just adds up. Like it just makes people. Then that's what I was gonna talk about before we hop on the call. There's so much on the slate where you look at it and you're like, that doesn't make any sense, and it kind of scares you. But I mean, he hit 31. I think he took 21 shots last game or 22 shots. So he doesn't need 30 shots to hit that total. So that's what I'm probably gonna take. But I had to like kind of talk through it. I feel like because he only saw 33 minutes last game because the team played well without him. But like
Right.
this team is not good. Like same with Jokic in Denver. When he leaves the court, the whole team just sucks. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't work. Like Andre Drummond thinks he's a point guard. Like I don't know why. Like it's not great. But George Niang had a good game. But if they struggle against the Spurs, who can like kind of catch lightning in a bottle, that 32, 33 minutes could easily be like 36 if he has to do it. So it just seems
Totally.
like one of those ones on the board that kind of screamed at me.
Yeah, man. That makes a ton of sense to me. Well, let's move on to a game. I'm curious to hear where you're at on this one because everything kind of got thrown up in the air with the lineups, and that's the Jazz and the Raptors.
Yeah,
Um,
no one knows. Like no Gobert, no like there's just it's a lot.
yeah, it's no Mitchell, no Bogdanovich, no Conley, no
yeah,
Ingles still.
and then
So I
I
mean,
think
it's maybe
Clarkson,
Clarkson, it's maybe O'Neal.
and then even Rudy Gay's day to day. Like
Yeah, and he's doubtful, I think now.
yeah,
So he could play, but it's not likely. So
yeah. One I ran like a few days ago was Siakam's RA. It was 20. It was 12 and a half this morning, but I think it moved to 13 and a half. But that's one of those ones where I don't know if I want to take it because I kind of talked to you before about like I try to limit my volume, but that's one where he's killing his like he didn't hit last game, but like overall with like a healthier roster, his like rebounds and assist prop has been pretty consistent. And I feel like in this matchup, you talk about the lineups, like he's getting 13 and a half is plus 100. So he's hit that in
wow.
4 of his last 5 games. He had 11 last game, but he also dropped like, I think he scored 33. He scored 30. He dropped 30 last game. So his points and rebound, I mean, his assist rebounds are kind of down. But I feel like 13 and a half is one that stood out to me because I feel like he's getting the bias that he's playing against the Jazz. And it's like, oh, the Jazz are good on defense. Of course, we got to lower this line or juice this line. But he's not playing the Jazz with Whiteside, Gobert, like O'Neal, like all these like length. He's playing the Jazz that will start like a small ball lineup that we've never seen before, really. Like,
Yep.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And that's a lot. This is actually a game that I bet quite a bit. And I'm hesitant on games like this, like during this COVID time when a bunch of people are out, like taking that first game. But I just feel like Toronto's stock is so much on the rise right now, and they're playing really well. And you
Yeah.
have to take into account that this is a game where, like you said, they're basically not playing the Jazz. They're mostly playing like a B team. And even I saw they signed a guy named Norvel Pell
Oh,
to a
man. Yeah.
contract, and he's supposed to play tonight right away even.
Yeah.
So when I looked at this game and was just looking like in the last 4 games where Toronto's just been crushing, what's made them successful? There's a few things. Number one, rebounds. They've had 54, 44, 52, and 44. So they're rebounding really well. They're shooting well from 3-point range, 44.4, 40.9, 38.2, and 31.4. So they're shooting the ball incredibly well. And then their pace has gone up a little bit. Actually, in 2 of those last 4 games, it's been over 100. And their pace is only 95.5 on average at home during the season. And I think if Utah plays this small ball lineup, I could see them with good coaching maybe trying to slow it down a little bit, but they also may try to speed it up because of the lineup that they have on the floor. And then on the trends side of things too, there are just overwhelming positive trends for Toronto against the spread here. The Jazz are 1-7 in their last 8 against the spread at Toronto.
Yeah.
Also, overwhelming trends for the over for the Jazz in this game. Toronto's margin of victory against okay teams has been 8, 15, 25, and 6 in these last 4 games. So I just look at them playing a B team here, basically, and I took some on the first quarter and the game overall with the spread, and then I'm thinking about Toronto's team total over 116.5 as well. I think this is a great spot.
I was gonna say too. I think the Twitter gambling all hates the Jazz because the Jazz let everyone down always. I took 2. Like I don't take many like player performance doubles, but like twice this year I did because I was like, oh, Gobert, I like him. They're minus 12 favorites. I'll do like a pairing of that. And both times they lost. And I'm not a person. I don't ban anybody. I'm not like one of those guys that like is like, oh, this guy's banned. But like the Jazz just piss me off. Like they never win when it's supposed to win. They never like do this and that. So like you look at it and I think it's what -11 spread. I think
Yeah, 11.5 now. Yeah.
people would love fading the Jazz just because how much pain they cause people. So I could see that one. I like that. And I think, and like you said, the Raptors. I mean, I think they're missing one person. Like they've gotten.
Yeah, they're pretty healthy now.
I mean, they weren't for a while, but they are now.
Yeah.
And like that's kind of why I would kind of like talk about. That's why I was looking at Siakam too. I think his assists as well are 4.5 tonight, and that's another one where he has 5 assists in 5 straight games. He's averaging 6.5 the last 5 games. Let me see. His last 5 games, he has 8, 7, 7, 5, 6. And it's funny that he's getting the Jazz, and the Jazz allow like the 5th least amount of assists. So I feel like he's getting a 4.5 line at -110 each side.
Wow.
It's one of those things where like he's going against a top defense, which makes sense. But we talked about before. You look at his actual opponent, and it's not a top 5 defense necessarily. I mean, you're talking about they're missing. Even who was Rudy Gay one doubtful? Because he's another guy.
He's doubtful. Yeah.
I love Rudy. Yeah, he's a great defender, and it's just like they're missing so much length, and all like the perimeter defenders for the Jazz that like restrict so many threes. You got like Van Fleet, you got Trent, you got all these guys that can shoot. So like when I saw that 4.5 line, I was kind of excited about it because I mean I hate betting on assists, but there should be plenty of opportunities for 5 assists against like a team that I know going into it. I get comments every single tweet I make, no matter what the play is. If it's a spread of 12 or a spread of 3.5, everyone always worries about the blowouts, but I don't really worry about blowouts. I kind of just take props based on the matchup. So for me, 5 assists. If you imagine if they're blowing him out, the guy score points. Like his usage rate. Like Siakam actually has the biggest usage rate of the team, which is funny to think about. But they run it like Giannis or like Joel Embiid. They run it like he brings the ball up a lot more than you think. So
totally.
Like that's one where
he's an athletic big for sure.
Yeah, so I think Spicy P could hit either the points, rebounds, or the assists tonight. I'll have to decide if I'm going to take it, but like I didn't realize until just now it was -110 on FanDuel for the assist, which I like that.
That's really good. Yeah, totally.
That's okay. -125 on DraftKings, so that's actually
that's a big difference, man. That's a big difference.
All right,
so
maybe I have a plan.
So let's do one more game here, and then I got kids coming home from school, so I'll have to, because I'm an old man, so that's what happens in my life. But
it's okay. I just turned 13, so we're good. Like this is, yeah.
So why don't you pick? Do you want to do Washington and Chicago or Sacramento and Denver?
We could do Sacramento, Denver. I like.
Let's do it then.
My guy De'Aaron Fox, who pissed me off last game because I was gonna bet us over all day, and then it was one of those things where I just decided against it. It was a late game. I had a decent day, and I was like, you know what, like we'll just kind of like watch it and see how it goes. And he dropped like I think 30 again. Like he's been on, so I like that game,
which is huge. Yeah, because he had a great run last year, didn't he? I mean, I didn't do much with props, but
yeah. Oh yeah, with De'Aaron Fox overall, it's just, I mean, like I said, Philly guy. If we can get Ben Simmons for De'Aaron Fox, I'll take that in a heartbeat. I love watching the guy play. He's just aggressive. Like he's just a great, like I like him a lot. Like he's got a lot of talent. I think he kind of gets like swept under the rug because he's just like him. I don't know, but I like watching him play.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's your game? Because I'll let you go first.
Yeah. So I spent most of my time looking at the 2 team totals in this game just because they felt really high to me, especially Denver's, which is 116.5, which is because Sacramento sucks on defense.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah, but when you look at it, they've only done that. Denver's only scored 117 or more 6 times since the beginning of November. So even though they have been scoring more at home than they were at the beginning of the season, a lot more actually, they're averaging 109 per game at home over their last 5, and only 105 on the season. So they're scoring more, but they've still only done that 6 times in like over 2 months now. And so it's hard for me to like a team total that's that high for Denver. They absolutely could get there, but it just seems like a lot.
I think the Kings, to hop on that, I think the Kings allow 111 a game. So obviously has like that has a lot of variance, but like it's still 5 or 6 points higher than like the baseline.
Right. Well, and actually, so they're on the season away from home. The Kings allow 117.4, and over their last 5 away, they've allowed 120. So that's
So
where that line is coming
yeah,
from.
I'd say that they have been really bad because, like I said, Lakers is another one. But yeah, they're not. And the other thing with the Kings that sucks is that like some teams have good defensive efficiency, but they make up with it with pace of play. The Kings have a horrible defensive efficiency, but they also play like top 5 pace. So like that kind of combined is like a recipe for disaster because it's not like they're slowing down the game to kind of limit possessions. They're just like running all game.
Yeah, right. So I haven't made this bet yet, but I'm gonna give you one more piece of research I did because I actually started out thinking this was a really good spot for Denver, but I'm actually sort of leaning towards Sacramento in the spot. But also, if anybody follows me on Twitter, you know I always get the Kings wrong, so maybe it's not good to tail me if I do that. But one thing I was looking at for Sacramento is in games where they score 109 or more. They've in every one of those games in the last couple months, they've had over 39 rebounds, generally have 50% or better from the field, 38% from three, and a combined field goal and 3-point percentage of 85% or better. And Denver really allows those numbers for the most part. So they allow 44.7 rebounds a game, way over that 39 that Sacramento needs. And they allow on average 86.5% combined field goal and 3-point percentage. And again, that number that Sacramento needs to be hitting 109 points or better is 85. So it's 1.5% over that number that I would look at. And then after that, like this started me leaning towards Sacramento, not necessarily to win the game, but the spread is 7.5. So just to be able to keep it within 7.5. And then I went and looked at trends, and Sacramento is 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 against Denver. And the over is 5-0 in the last 5 at Denver here, too. So I actually lined this game around a 229 total and Denver -3. So with Vegas having it at Denver -7.5, I haven't done it yet because I'm so nervous about betting the Kings anymore because I've lost money with them too many times. But based on the numbers I looked at, I think this is actually an okay spot for them.
Yeah, no, I'm like I guess the Kings are like the Jazz. They kind of let everyone down. That's another team where I think it's very polar because whenever like they're in a good spot, I feel like they always I don't know, but like, they've been good though. Like recently, like I feel like they're on 2 different like trajectories, if that makes sense. I feel like the Denver's kind of watching them. They're kind of sliding a little bit, and the Kings, to me, like even though like wins and losses are one thing, I watch the games and I kind of like watch like kind of like get a feel for teams.
Yep.
Like watching the Kings play, they just like have high energy, and
Do you think a lot of that has to do with Fox though? It feels like him starting to play better is making a huge difference.
it's also like he's missed so many games. And then I have a general rule of thumb where like if someone's coming back from injury or COVID protocol, I kind of like to see how they play. So he was awful his first 3 games, and I was really high on his over against the Lakers, which is funny because he was awful. That was one of those ones I felt proud of because everyone has been betting Halliburton for however long. And I actually had people DM me that were like, "Oh, like why'd you take Fox over Halliburton like before the game?" And I was like, "Well, the Lakers are 88 years old. Like they don't like they don't defend well against guys that like drive and like people. Like I had a guy that like he DM'd me. He was like, "I'm not taking it. I'm taking Halliburton." And then he sent me the props.cash. And like now that I'm working with props.cash, one of the things that they want to bring me on board for too is they want to like have people like kind of interpret data because like props.cash honestly to me is like a great tool. I love it, but I've had people like even before like working with them or anything like that, people like will message me and they'll be like, "Oh, this guy has hit this 5 straight games." And I'm like, "Yeah, but this guy's returning tonight." And they're like, "Oh, I didn't even think of that." So it's like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like I think a lot of Twitter
Yeah.
cappers, like there's a lot of people out there that have like, you know, the army of people that are starting to get a page. I always recommend people to get a page. But so many people are like, I saw a page on Twitter that says like more red than green, and the whole thing is he bets more green than red or whatever. Like you know what I mean? But there's so much context, and that's one where like Fox being back, like he's shooting at a crazy clip. Like he's taken over. Like as much as like Halliburton's done when he's gone, like they do coexist, but like the last 2 matchups have been all like all favorable to Fox. So like him being
Yeah.
back, you talk about the spread. I think like he brings so much energy to that team that like a +8 spread is a lot. Like that's a lot to like
Yeah.
imagine. And I think Denver is I think 6-12 or 6-11 against the spread after a loss. So like they're not one of the, like they I only know that because they're the worst team. I think they cover 35% of the times after a loss. Like so while like some
Yeah.
teams bounce back after a loss, Denver's kind of just like yeah. Like I know Jokic is,
We'll
but
just
like
lose again.
yeah, they just like they might win, but like I just even the Kings they lost the Lakers, right? I believe, right? The Lakers did they pull that one out?
I'm trying to remember when they played most recently. I
They
think the
lost. I think
Lakers
they
won,
lost.
but
Yeah, I think it was 122 to 114. I'll have to check on that. I didn't really prepare to be on this. I just kind of like showed up. But like at the end of the day, like the Kings were early on, they were leading. Like the Kings had control of that game watching it in the first half, and the Lakers kind of make a push. So I haven't looked, but like that's one where I would even look for like the Kings first half spread if you're like looking into like that
it's not a bad idea.
because they're one of those there's some teams out there like teams I will bet against, no matter what the spread is, are like the Rockets, the Magic. Like I'll take prop because people always say, "Oh, blowout, it's a -10 spread." But there's some teams that hang around. Like the Sixers beat the Magic by 10. They cover the spread. There was a -9
Right.
spread.
Oh,
But
but
like
that
I
was close.
they're gonna
That game
lose.
was close.
Yeah, there's some games out there where like teams just like hang around, and the Kings are one where I kind of like them because like they hang around. Like the
Yeah.
Hawks covered the spread against them, I think, by 6, but that was
Yep.
another game where it legitimately looked like the Kings could pull it out, and
Yeah.
I think the Kings might have been favored that game too because they didn't have Trae Young, but like overall, the margin of victory since Fox has come back has been pretty close, except for the second Cavs game, the Mavericks game. I mean, but like they kind of hang around, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, when you talked about the halves, so in their last 7 games, I think they've just straight up won in the first half. I'm checking here. It's either 4 or 5 out of the 7.
Yeah,
So
like
they've done that more often than they haven't. I think it's 5 out of 7 where they've won the first half. And
that's what I
they're
was gonna
so
say. It's a 4.5 spread because eight and a half for the game. So 4.5, like 4
yeah,
points, 2 possessions. Like that's not. I mean, you're getting
not
minus
bad.
110 for 4.5 spreads. Not bad. And me and my brother make jokes about Jokic. Like we like great player, but like he kind of moves like a fat baby.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so like I would kind of attack that like first half spread where like I think Denver's one of those teams that like they can easily get caught up in a long run like after a loss. Like they can especially were they home last game? I forget.
I can find out quick here.
Yeah, because I forget
I
because if
think,
they were home. I was gonna say because if they were away last game,
yeah,
yeah,
they
that
were home.
would have been a huge letdown spot. But either
But
way,
they're away now, so
yeah.
yeah.
So that's
But
interesting.
well, hey man, I gotta wrap this for today. But before I do, why don't do you have anything you want to promote or tell people where to find you and stuff?
No, I mean I feel like I share this on my Twitter too. Like I feel like um, Twitter name is right there on the screen. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't really do much. Like I think part of the reason I like my page is I don't really do much like promoting. I just kind of give props, then go to bed, and then I just kind of repeat.
Yep.
But yeah, I appreciate
I
being here
love
'cause
it.
it's actually nice because I balance this because I feel like sometimes for me, I have such a big board of props, and like I just gotta like talk through them. And usually, with COVID, I've been talking to the wall, so it's been nice to get like a back and forth for once.
Yeah, totally, man. Well, I appreciate you jumping on. I know it was last minute, but like I said, I started following you like a month ago. And honestly, what you just said about your page is part of what I'm drawn to. And that's kind of the way I try to operate too, is to post stuff, not
Really
get,
emotional.
real animated or emotional either way. And
I
just
mean,
hopefully post good content,
I'll make some live tweets complaining about some stuff. Like Julius Randle yesterday pissed me off. But
Yeah.
I don't know if you like whenever I make a live tweet about a player I bet on, they immediately do better. So I have to do it sometimes. Like I noticed it once where I bet on Rashad Holmes. He had 0 points in the first 17 minutes, and I was like, "Where is this guy? Like, what the hell's going on?" And he did like a 10-point scoring run, and the line was like 9.5, and I was like,
Oh,
"All
nice.
right." I was
Hey,
like, "This."
Rashawn Holmes can do that,
I was
right?
like, "This is
So,
my thing now." I just like whenever
yeah,
someone's sucking, I just immediately do something like that and see what happens.
it's awesome.
No, yeah, but yeah,
Awesome, man.
thanks for
Well,
having
I
me.
appreciate you joining me, and definitely like check us out on Twitter. I'm sure both of us will be posting any plays we've got for the day throughout the rest of the afternoon. Hopefully we'll all have a good day together today. So
Yeah, it's gonna be like a minefield with the big slate. You gotta make sure you don't like step on anything.
hopefully we step around all of it and find a little bit of cash. So, all right, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for checking us out, and we'll see you on Twitter.
All right.